Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Shoutouts Hour. Today we have our second ever interview with a Michigan State athlete. We have Rayvon Foley with us from the MSU wrestling team. How are you doing today, Rayvon?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling good about this episode being 23. You know, Michael Jordan. I feel like that's just luck. That's good luck right there. So I'm hoping we have a great interview.
Yeah, it should be the greatest of all time, hopefully.
That's what I'm saying, the greatest.
All right, let's hop right into this. Rayvon, so you started wrestling at 10 years old. I want to know, can you give the audience a little bit of a timeline through your journey of the last few years of wrestling?
Man, it's been very interesting. I started wrestling. Most people started at like 5, 4. I started at 10, I started because my brother started wrestling in high school. And I kind of just did whatever my brother did. And he was kind of like my father figure. I didn't really have my dad around when I was super young. So I just kind of I looked at what my brother would do and I would just do what he did. And he started wrestling. I started wrestling and I just kind of fell in love with it. And, I just kept getting better and better and really enjoyed it. And then I ended up wrestling here in college and, had a lot of success.
Going on the 6th year now, Rayvon. Wanted to ask you, I believe it was freshman year you were named an All-American, correct?
Sophomore year.
Sophomore year, okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, well, we made about 2 minutes in the interview before making the first mistake. I apologize about that one, Rayvon. Wow.
It's all good. It's all good.
Not the best there.
I'm here to correct whatever mistakes people make.
Should hopefully be no more throughout the rest of this interview. So sophomore year, you're named All-American. How was that for your confidence in the sport of wrestling?
It was a big deal because, everybody that I mentioned before, I started late, and most people that I probably beat were probably ahead of me in terms of the time they had, the technical skills, but I was able to catch up. I was able to get reach that level, and it was a big deal for me because it showed that it proved to me that I knew I was one of the best in the country, but it proved to me and proved to everybody else that, I was one of the best in the country and probably, if not the best. And so, it gave me that confidence to know, yeah, you're up there.
Yeah, well,
good.
I think one thing is, as you were mentioning a second ago, you can always think that you're one of the best, but once you get that recognition, it's kind of like you got proven to you. Mm-hmm. There's someone actually saying, yeah, you are one of the best. So it sometimes helps your mentality just not go from, I'm thinking I'm one of the best to I am one of the best. And you walk into every match thinking that way.
Yeah, and everybody else will respect you too. Everybody else will come up to you and be like, yo, you're Rayvon. Hey, man, you inspire me. So many people have come up to me throughout my career and been like, hey, man, I've watched you since, I was in high school. I watched you, and you keep doing what you're doing, man. You're inspiring people, and you don't, even though you may not see it, you are impacting people. And so stuff like that was I would deal with, maybe I'm having a bad day or I'm dealing with stuff, or maybe I had a bad training day, and people saying that type of stuff really would help me stay motivated and keep working hard.
Yeah, you mentioned being an inspiration of people. You talked to me a little bit about wanting to go into coaching eventually before this podcast started, and I saw, believed it was on your LinkedIn to be quite honest, that you have a little bit of a passion for mentoring the younger youth. I wanted to ask, with that coaching journey, as you look at it, what is it that you would want to get out of that experience?
I want to help kids that kind of had, difficulties that didn't have the same opportunities as somebody else might not have. I want to be able to impact that kid who doesn't feel like he has anybody in his life that he can look up to, who doesn't see many people around him that he can really gravitate to or connect with, that can relate to him, what he's going through, or she, and it doesn't have to be a he. I want to make that, I'm not discriminating against anybody, because I've worked with kids and I've worked with, girls, and I work with boys, and I've been, I not only have, maybe I've impacted them, but they've impacted me and made me think different about my life and who I am as a person, and it made me a better person in a lot of ways. I think children have a special charm about them because they don't care about the things that we do, as adults. I think sometimes as adults, we get so caught up in work and career where I'm not completely an adult yet, but I am young, and I'm starting to realize my path and what I want to do, in coaching and in sports and mentoring. With a lot of that stuff comes expectations, and those expectations can be like difficult to sort of navigate, and you can put a lot of pressure on yourself. Kids, man, they just live life, and I like being around kids because they remind me that you have to live life. You have to enjoy life, and you don't think too much about stuff. I mean, it's kids can be brutally honest sometimes and blunt. And I'm not saying that like don't be unaware, but just the aspect of like just not letting things get to you, and just going out there and just doing things and enjoying life.
Yeah, well, I feel it's pretty rare that you see a kid who's actually stressed out over something in life. I feel like childhood's one of the few times in life where you're always living in the moment. You can have little moments like that as an adult, but when you're a child, every single moment is new to you, so you're taking it in. You're not really comparing it to past experiences. And as you mentioned, sometimes they'll be a little bit blunt as they haven't learned like what's right to say and what's not right to say.
Yeah.
But that comes with also not holding expectations for themselves and not holding like a line that holds them back from going to do what they want to do. If you're a kid and you want to go run and play on a swing, you run and play on a swing. Right. You don't debate like what is that other person gonna think if I run and play on the swing.
Yeah, I mean like like instead of being blunt, right, and being unaware, maybe you could be like like don't have a fear of voicing your opinions. Maybe you want to speak about something, and whether it's politics, whether it's health, mental health, or maybe social issues, and you want to speak about that stuff. And sometimes you gotta be you gotta speak the truth. You don't necessarily have to be blunt, like super hard on people, but just speak the truth. And don't lie or spin it or not try to make it seem like you're a person that you're not. I just think that's unhealthy. I think that happens a lot nowadays. That people, especially with social media, people kind of like pretend they're something that they're not. They front and they say like I'm this, or they don't feel as comfortable as speaking up about things because they're afraid of being canceled. And it's hard to navigate that stuff, but I think you should always be willing to speak about who you are and what you truly want to do.
Yeah, there's always that old saying where if you don't have your word, you have nothing. You need to be true to your word, true to what you think about. You can't be putting out front, as you mentioned, especially with the social media age that we live in now. Not even just with the cancellation attempts, but just people wanting to seem like something that they aren't. They can be a terrible person behind the camera, but they're fronting in front of it like they're the greatest person in the world. They're donating millions to random people, but behind the camera, they could be a terrible person to the people they work with. You never really know how that goes. So you need to hold true to your truth. And as you said, comparing to that child analogy that we were talking about earlier, it's not really about being blunt, but it's about speaking your honest truth, saying what you care about. And as you mentioned, with the mental health and all the other type of topics that you could talk about, if you're actually that truthful, there's so much more that you could explore. It's not going to be like, I'm putting myself behind this curtain, making myself not express myself so that other people like me. I'm going to share my truth and what I think, deal with the repercussions of it. But one thing I want to talk to you a little bit about, Rayvon, is that there was a while where you were dealing with some injury concerns. I remember you talking about that. There was that season you had a red shirt due to injury after only 4 matches. What was it like during the comeback, as we talked about mental health a little bit earlier, what was it like in your mental state to get over that hump of I can't do really anything for this year?
Man, I mean, it was really, really difficult. I spent most of my career wrestling, like half of my life wrestling with really no injuries until I got to college. Like when I got like to sophomore year, the year I All-American, I didn't really have any injuries. Like I did. When I wrestled at the Big Tens the year that I All-American, I hurt my ankle at the Big Tens. And I remember that was really crazy. Like it was really tough. Like I could barely walk after the match. I had a big knot like the size of a tennis ball on my ankle, and it was like, well, like how am I gonna perform? And I remember just feeling like, wow, this is this is not what I thought was gonna happen. I had not planned on it. And I also got hurt wrestling somebody that I had beaten pretty easily. So I didn't know like how to handle it. But when I got to NCAAs, I think it was in Pittsburgh that year, I was like having trouble wrestling. I wasn't wrestling. I like lost maybe my first match, the first match I lost. After that, I just was like, I like had my ankle taped, and I was just like, I just want to cut the tape. Like I'm sick of my ankle. I'm just gonna go out there and wrestle. Like I have nothing to lose. I gotta wrestle back anyway. And I cut the tape, and I just started wrestling, and I ended up All-American. You know, just because I just made that choice to just go out there and just perform regardless. So, but then like I just started getting a string of injuries after that, and that's different, right? Because like it's different when you have multiple injuries back to back to back. Because I missed summers of practice. I missed like being able to train every single day during the summer, and those are crucial times because those are like when you're really going to get better is when you're training in the summer and working out. So I had 2 knee surgeries on my right knee. I had 2 shoulder surgeries on my right and my left shoulder, and I'm currently gonna have to get another surgery on my left shoulder because of just wrestling, man. So I mean, wrestling is a really hard sport. It's tough on the body, but I never gave up. You know, I never stopped going out there competing. You know, even though I may have not gotten the results I've wanted these past couple years, I never like gave up. I just kept going, and I tried to go out there and to compete at the highest level regardless. And you know, at the end of the day, things may have not worked out how I've wanted them to work out, but I've trusted, God, like we mentioned before, we talked off camera. I've trusted God. I've trusted the people around me, and I know, regardless of how things work out, that as long as I go out there and I give 100% and believe in myself, they're gonna love me, and God's gonna love me, and I'm gonna still be able to enjoy what I do, even if things don't work out in the end. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that you kind of found God throughout the college process. I wanted to kind of focus on it a little bit. Did you find him during that injury-plagued area of your life where you kept having injury after injury after injury? Or would you say it was kind of found during one of the other years while you were here?
It was kind of an up and down thing, but I think the injuries like really brought me closer to God. Like I hurt my knee after the season All-American. I hurt my knee that summer, and I would go to like Christian meetings with the athletes through AIA, but I stopped going because I just was like, if my knee is messed up and I can't compete, like how could like God like really, like how could I like really trust God if like he's like letting this happen to me? So I like from that point on, I really didn't really like believe in God. I became agnostic, and for like two or 3 years, I was just kind of like doing my own thing. Like I kind of just I didn't really deny God, but I didn't really believe in God. I was just kind of like, man, if there's a God, there is a God, but I don't really trust it because why am I always getting hurt? You know what I mean? But like that didn't really solve the problem because after that, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna like do everything myself and I just gotta believe in myself. I don't need anything higher than myself. I just gotta believe in myself. So I just kept doing that mindset. Like I just gotta believe in myself. I just gotta believe in myself. But at least for me, there was only so far I could go, like mentally. Like I just broke down a lot because I put so much pressure on myself because it was only me, and I didn't really like lean on other people. And then it felt like also like other people had their problems too. So I couldn't always reach out to people to like, and not everybody was injured. Like I had teammates that like they were training, like I remember one time I was at practice and like my shoulder was like really killing me. Like it was like, and I didn't know like I had to get surgery on it during this time, but I just knew that I had a shoulder problem. And I was getting really frustrated. And we were jogging at the end, and I didn't really have a good practice because my shoulder was bothering me. And one of my teammates came up to me, and he was like, "Hey man, it'll be all right. You'll make it through it." And I was like, "What, bro? Like, no, like, get out my face. Like, what are you talking about? It'll be all right. Like, I'm hurting. Like, this hurts. I cannot wrestle good right now because my shoulder hurts." So, you know, like, it was really hard to, like, just handle things alone. And I had to learn that I can't do things alone. And that's when I was like, if I can't do things alone and I can't always rely on other people, then what do I rely on? Who do I rely on? And honestly, I just started reading the Bible. It wasn't really like, oh, I'm instantly, you know, a Christian, or I instantly just became like, I just started reading the Bible because I was curious, because I thought it was a book of wisdom. And I've heard that there was people, like, in my mind, I was like, there's like people read this book and for some reason they were inspired. And for some reason they thought God wrote the book, or God spoke to them and they wrote the book. And because of that, you know, they decided like they've accomplished great things, or they were able to overcome stuff. So I went in there trying to really seek wisdom, and like I just really gravitated to the words that Jesus would say. And one verse that stuck out to me was, if you live your life for yourself, you will lose it. But if you live your life for my sake, you will gain it. And so, like, I read that verse, and why it stuck out to me is because Jesus basically was saying, like, if you trust me and you believe in me, I will give you life. You can't always trust yourself. And I knew that just from experience, that I can always trust myself. So I was like, okay. And so, you know, I like prayed to Jesus and asked him to, like, you know, come into my life and help me. Basically, I was like, hey, help. Like, I didn't know if it would work. That's what I said. I was like, hey, you said this, so I'm just gonna, it was almost like, you know, somebody like, promising you something, right? Like, somebody was like, hey, if you go to the store right now, they have free, like, food, and, you know, I'll be there and I'll give you, like, I'll make sure you get the ticket, and you be able to get in the store, and I'll give you your ticket so you can get all the free food you want. And then you show up and you don't know if this person actually gonna promise you free food. You know, you just like, you hungry. And so I went in there hungry, you go in there hungry, and now you show up and the person's there and they actually have the ticket, and you're like, okay, wow. So that's what I'm thinking, like, that's how my mind was. It's like, I'm just like, hey, I'm showing up hungry. And you know, I've felt and I believed, and I've seen evidence throughout my process for me that showing that he's changed me and he's made me a better person. And I know that was pretty long, but that's kind of like how sort of things kind of have worked out since my relationship with God has kind of grown.
Yeah, Rayvon, that wasn't too long at all, man. Don't worry about that at all. That was beautiful, dude. I'm happy that you put the trust in. They actually had the ticket, because as you mentioned, faith is so important, and the fact that you have to trust a little bit blindly that something's going to come out of your practice. And luckily it did for you. As I just was thinking the entire time that you're talking, you basically lived a real life book of Job for what happened. Like, you had everything taken away.
It's funny, I'm reading
you.
That book too right now. So
really? Yeah. That couldn't come at a more perfect time, though, because you had everything taken away, had to have your faith tested, and then you came back to it. You were able to trust it. As you mentioned, it's not an overnight process. It's something that happens day by day, a little bit more each day.
Yeah.
And luckily, you're at a point now where you feel safe with it. You feel comfortable with it. And it's a really nice thing to see, because some people can't imagine just putting in the step-by-step process to have the full picture revealed.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, I just, and not only that, it feels like also like I'm free to go. It feels like since I discovered my relationship with God, my identity wasn't just in wrestling. Like everything wasn't just about wrestling. It became like I could live life and I could like enjoy the people around me. So like times where I would like I would kind of do things by myself, or like every time I would see somebody, it was almost like for me, I don't know if this is like everybody or maybe I'm just that much of a bad person, but every time I met somebody, I would always look at them as like, what is something that how can they benefit me? It was almost like a contract or a transaction when I would meet people. Like if I met a girl, it was always like, oh, how pretty is she? And how much is that gonna like bring attention to me so I can get more girls or like whatever, you know what I mean? Everything became like that. Like it was a transaction, a trade-off. And that's how I felt about life. Like it was like, oh, like that's just how life is. Everything you do, you just gotta, people only care about like what you have to offer them. And if you have nothing to offer them, you're nothing. And that, when I like found my faith in Christ, that changed because I realized that everybody has value. Like nobody's in this earth and we're just nothing. If that was the case, we would treat everybody like nothing all the time. Like I truly feel that. But why do people treat people with value? Even with people who we deem as like worthless or nothing of society, like why do we care about people with disabilities if they're nothing, right? If they don't have nothing really to offer that much, right? But I think it's because people truly do care about people and truly do want to love them. And I don't even think that really is anything to do with like faith. I think that's just like innate in us to care about people, to love people. And so because of that, I realized that like, nah, like we should I don't think that's how the world works. Not really. I think people may think that way, but I don't think that that's how things have to be. So
no, I that's a really beautiful point that you're making there, Rayvon. I got lost in it for a second because that was actually a really cool thing that you were saying there. Because when you think about it, people think that humans are naturally selfish creatures, but when you look at babies, when you look at little kids, they're compassionate, they're empathetic, they're not selfish. Mm-hmm. The society and the goal-oriented focus a lot of people have, where it's, what can I get out of this? The transactional way of thinking that you mentioned. That is a really common mindset that most people in society have. And that's what's led to so many people just getting selfish, moving away from faith, and just looking at, can this person help me? Can this person move me along in my career? Yeah. Or can they make me money? That's just how it goes a lot of the time. But as a child, when you're meeting somebody, it's like, I can't be this guy's friend. It's not, can this guy make me money somehow? And I think it's just the way that's ingrained in us now. You go throughout the school system, you grow up, you're looking for a job. People always talk about you got to make connections. You got to make people who are going to get you into a certain industry. That's not always what you want to have. You want to have some people who are just genuine friends, not there to get you into an industry or make you money, but to be there when you're down, when you need help. Because realistically, the big corporations, the people who got you into those corporations, they're not going to be by your side when you're down, when you're at your lowest. Your best friends are going to be there. Your family's going to be there. And one thing about the transactional way of thinking, it makes relationships not important at all. There's no reason for it to be like, I really care about this person, and there's no specific reason why. It's just I do. It's, I care about this person because they got me into this position that I'm in right now. Right. And if that was taken away, why would you care about them? Right. There's no purpose to it. It's just such an empty way to live.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's everything you said is just, I believe is true. And I listened to this book over the summer that somebody introduced me to. One of my boys, I got to hit him back, man. I haven't. Well, if you out there, man, you know who you are. You know, I'll reach out to you. But he introduced me to this book, and he was like, "Yo, you should check this out." And the book was called "The Go Giver," because you know how people say, and especially in our society, it's popular to say, "Oh, I'm a go getter. I'm a go getter. I'm gonna just go get," you know. But this book was talking about how actually, if you want to succeed in life and really have success, you should be a go giver, right? And in the book, it was describing how, if you notice, like, for example, like people like Bill Gates or what's another like kind of rich dude?
Like Jeff Bezos.
Trying to think who invented Tesla? Who's his name?
Oh, Elon Musk.
Like those guys, a lot of times they do a lot of charity work. You know what I mean? they like give to a lot of people. And a lot of people be like, oh man, like some of those people don't care. They don't really care. They just want to look good. And like, yeah, they may be true. But the point of the book is that even though, you know, like people really like, if you really want to be successful and you really want to help people and you really want to inspire people, give. Give a service to people and actually want to serve people. Don't just like go up to people and just be like, oh, hey, I want to get to the top. How do I do it? You know what I mean? And like, you know, because our society teaches us that you have to push your way to the top. But that's really not how things work. That's not how things work. I truly believe that. I truly believe if you really want to get to the top, treat people well, like serve people, be there for people, and people will respect that and people will believe you because you truly believe that, right? If you're only serving people because you want to get something out of it, eventually that's only going to last so long, right? You may have success, you may have power, you may get influence, but I don't think you're really going to build anything meaningful and really truly impact people, right? Like really truly impact them. You may make an impact, but it may not be the impact that you thought it would be or that really benefits society.
I agree with you completely. It really limits what you can do when you think that type of way. When you're doing it to try getting some ulterior motive, there's no real reason for you to do it, so you have no real passion towards it. When it's something that you're doing just to rise up, it's not going to work. But there's one way of thinking that a lot of people follow where it's you got to stomp on people like a ladder to get up to the top. But there's another way of thinking that a lot of people have that people don't really realize, where instead of stomping your way to the top, you can get pushed up to the top by helping other people, having them care about you.
Yeah.
It's such a better way to get there. You're not hurting people. You're not just making friendships get ruined so you can just get a little bit more money in your job. It's something where you have all those people caring about you, all them cheering you on, and you cross the finish line and they're so happy for you. It's not you're going to be standing there at the finish line with no fans, no one around you, no one to hug you after. It'll be everyone's there because they care about you.
Yeah, sometimes it's not a game. Sometimes it's a plane. Sometimes you can see like everybody and y'all can help each other stay on the same level or go further. But a lot of people say, "Oh no, I got to play the game. Oh, no, I got to get past him." Not everything is a competition. No, like competition is cool, it's important. I think competition is good. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that like, "Oh, don't be competitive." But I'm just saying, why are you being competitive? What is the purpose of it? Is the purpose truly to really like hurt that person? Dude, like if that's the case, bro, you could, if you really want to win, do whatever it takes, right? People would be out here hurting and like breaking legs and purposely injuring people during like soccer games and football games. But that's not how it works. We have rules in those games. Why do we have rules in those games? Because we don't really want to hurt people for real. Like it's serious, but it ain't that serious. You know what I mean? Like we want to make things fair, and we do care about what happens to people. That's why when somebody gets hurt, the ambulance comes and they're like trying to get this person off the field because we want to take care of the person's health now, so they can get back to doing what they do. You know what I mean? Get back to doing what they love. I think people really love to see people doing what they love. It makes everybody love, because when you see somebody successful doing what they love and it inspires you, you're like, I need to find what I love to do. And I think that just breeds more love. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, have you ever seen that guy? I'm pretty sure he trends on Instagram, TikTok all the time, but there's the guy who knows how to find any location on the map if he sees like a small snippet of it. Have you seen that at all?
Nah, really.
One of the coolest things, the guy ended up getting sponsorships from like Microsoft, a bunch of different companies. Never did anything to stop down other people. He would just spend his entire day streaming, going on Google Maps where it would randomly locate a location, and you'd be able to figure out like, oh, that's Germany because they have a little blue sticker on the trash cans. Something that crazy. And he was able, yeah, I will show you it after we finish this up because it is so cool, yeah. But that is one of the most positive things. He never pushed people down. He always preached they wanted people to take care of other people, even though he was just finding locations on a map. And that's one thing you really have to respect. He used his platform for good. He didn't use it as just something to make money.
And I mean, that's so real, man. I see so many people on social media, on like YouTube, on whatever, pushing people down, man. Like people, like I've seen this stuff, and I was talking to my friend like yesterday about this. I saw like this little issue. You ever heard of the red pill Like,
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so there was like this issue where these people were working together, they worked together, then this one like person, like this one red pill like person, like they her channel, I remember it now. Her channel was Just Pearly Things. And she got into an issue with a couple other YouTubers because she brought somebody on her channel that, I mean, I completely disagree with his views. He obviously doesn't like me as a person, like as a black person. He doesn't like me. He's clearly racist. But she brought him on the channel, right? And it's completely wrong what she did. But a lot of the people that were working with her, they kind of like turned on her completely, right? Like they basically said, oh yeah, like I'll never work with her. She's a bad person now. And it's like, just like a couple of days ago, bro, y'all were like agreeing on the same stuff, and now you don't agree with her. And I'm not saying like that it's like wrong. It's wrong to like disagree with that person and the person she brought on the channel. But I'm just saying, like, I think it would have been better if they was to go up to her, talk to her in private, or maybe on another podcast, and really try to understand what happened. I think that's healthier rather than like exposing somebody or making them seem like a bad person. They may have done a bad thing, but that don't mean they had bad intentions. I think that our society has lost grip of that. When somebody makes a mistake, we want to cancel them automatically instead of trying to help them understand what they did, that it was a mistake. It wasn't who they are. We define people by what they do, right? But it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. Sometimes people do things and they don't think about it, or they just don't know. And it takes people time, right? You got to give people time to really, truly understand them. And I think, because so many people talk about Martin Luther King and how great he was, and what he did. But one of the things that that inspired me, which I think is so crazy about Martin Luther King, he literally, right? He was doing fine. He was just a pastor. He graduated like college at like, I think like 16, like super young. He had all the opportunities in the world that he could go anywhere, right? But he saw what was happening to black people in the country, and he took it upon himself. Like, he was asked to do this. He could have not done this, but he was asked to start a movement, and not only that, make it a non-violent movement, right? That's insane, because you're going up to people who hate you, who don't like you at all, and you're basically saying, no, I love you, and I'm just gonna let you hit me, right? That's crazy. Like, and I don't think most people in the society would actually do that. I think now we live in a society, like I said, where you're pushing people down. Martin Luther King was like, no, I'm going to like show you who I am, and you're gonna have to accept it. I'm gonna like hold up myself to such a high moral standard that you have to accept it. And if you don't, yeah, you can kill me and destroy me, but people will know the truth. They will know that what you did was wrong. Like, and I think he was okay. He knew that he could die any day. Before he even got killed, he was being targeted and getting shot at multiple times. Martin Luther King could have died at any time, right? And so I know I brought up like Martin Luther King, and it's like, oh yeah, everybody knows about Martin Luther King, but I've really just been thinking and meditating on that. The fact that he literally sacrificed, he was willing to sacrifice his life for something bigger than himself. And it was like, that's why people are so inspired by him to this day, because he was like, he was looking at like everything, how the world was, and he was like, this isn't okay, and I'm willing to die for this, you know?
Yeah, it all goes back to that quote that you said earlier about Jesus saying that you don't want to just live for yourself, but live for him. Mm-hmm. He didn't really live for himself. He lived for everyone else in his community. He lived so people would be on equal footing with everyone. And as you mentioned, the fact that it was a nonviolent movement, for him to do that and to be fully set with the repercussions of that, that just shows how much of a good person he was and how much he wanted the good for his community instead of just glory for himself. If he wanted to make a name for himself, could have gone on talk shows, could have gone a bunch of places. Not really sure that what worked back then. I'm realizing now as I say that. But he could have found a way. Yeah, realized I was making it seem like it was the 1990s or something. But no, back then he probably couldn't have done that. But he could have done something to make it seem like it was just, he wanted them to be, like, he wanted black and whites to be allies, basically. But he wanted to make himself the center figure of that. He could have done that if he really wanted to. Instead, he stowed back from that. He didn't really want people to remember him. He wanted them to remember what he did and what he worked for, which is what they do remember him for.
Yeah,
he didn't.
I think you mentioned, like, before you said, oh, he wanted black people to be allies, and I've heard that ally thing a lot. And in my opinion, right, I mean, it sounds really cool, but I think it was deeper than that for him. I think he wanted us to understand that we are all human, that we don't need to have a color line. Not that we don't have differences, not that black and white doesn't exist, but I don't know if you ever heard of Jane Elliott, but she said this. She said, "There's only one race. That's the human race." There's like, not that she's saying, like I said, she's not saying that, oh, it doesn't matter if you're black, brown, blue, whatever, or your color doesn't matter. It don't matter if you're dark. She's saying that with our differences, we all come from the same place. We all have the same ancestry. That means that you just have a little less melanin. You have a lot less melanin in me, right? But that's just genetics, right? We're still human. That's the point that she was trying to make. That's the point Martin Luther King was trying to make. There's going to be differences. I don't necessarily think bias will go away. Maybe it could, maybe it couldn't. But I do think that we can learn that right there. You're human. Even though you have a different hairstyle, different hair texture, you're human, right? And not only that, you can think the way I think, you can speak the way I speak, you can have the same knowledge that I have, right? And so, but why is that so hard for us to understand? I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. People think in order for them to live, right, in order for them to enjoy life, or in order for them to have some sort of control and to have power, they have to push people down. They have to make boundaries. And it's good to set boundaries, but why are we setting them, and what are we setting them for?
Yeah, a lot of the time when people set boundaries too, they're doing it fully wrongly to a massive group of people instead of just to one person at a time. Like, people, everyone knows it's 2023, racism, sexism, all that stuff. It's just nonsense at this point. It doesn't make any sense. People, no matter what they look like, no matter how they act, can get to a certain position in life. We're all standing equal. I kind of want to clarify what I was saying earlier. Realized I worded it very badly. What I was trying to say was that Martin Luther King could have made it seem like he was just trying to make us allies, but as you said, he was just trying to make us all seem like one. We're all one human race. It's not something where it's like we're all teaming up for this, like we're teaming up in an Avengers movie. That's not how the world is. That was not even close.
Because it comes like that, and it's like I don't want to call like white people my ally. I want to call white people my brothers and sisters. Yeah. Like, I feel like weird about that because I've met white people, Asian people, people from different various cultures, people who speak a different language, people who come, who eat different foods. I've met with them and they felt like closer to me than somebody who may come from the same place I came from. Not saying that they will relate to everything that I am because of, just differences, but they can relate to me in a different way and in some ways closer. It's not about what you look like, right? And, you may have preferences, but I think we can learn that we all are here and we're on this earth to live a life. How do we want to live that life? And how peaceful do we want this life to be? There's people in Ukraine right now that are dying. And, they're going to war to defend their land. And they're fighting against another country. Those people who are going to war, both sides have their own reasons for doing it. And I think ultimately everybody just wants to live. Why do we protect what we have? Why are the Ukrainians defending what they have so much, and why do the Russians feel so adamant to take the land? Maybe because they all want to live a better life. I think it all goes down to that. They want to live a better life. Maybe they shouldn't go to war for it, but I think that everybody, thinks like that. How do I live a better life, and how do I want my life to be? You know, and unfortunately, people have done some horrible things to try to live a better life. Some people don't want to live at all, which I think is horrible. So it's a very the human condition is a very, very it's something that I think people struggle with, but I think you can find hope in the darkness. I do think that. So
yeah, I really do agree with what you're saying. There's always a bright side that you can find. It's so easy for people just to look at a situation from the outside and say, oh, these are the good, these are the bad guys. But when you're thinking about it, those soldiers all think that they're doing the right thing for their country. Either if they're Russian, Ukraine, American, anything, they think they're doing the right thing. It's really just the upper ranks of people who are telling them what to do, and they're listening to it because that's their duty. And that's sadly what happens with a lot of people in the world, even if it's not an active war situation. It's someone in a business. They're saying, we want to use bad corporate tactics so we can make a little bit more money. The worker's going to think, oh, I'm doing the right thing for my boss. He's going to appreciate this. He's going to pay it back to me and love me. But when they get caught for it, that worker's getting kicked out. The boss doesn't care about them. They're just a peon in that situation.
Right.
And I think that can apply to a lot of the world today when we think about it. If everyone just worked together, trying to care about people, care about everyone, instead of caring about helping their boss make an extra dollar or helping the person above them go to another upper echelon, the whole world would be a lot better. Because when you think about through every community, if you look at teachers, you look at them trying to help superintendents get a certain grade on their evaluation report, I guess. Like, because I know schools are great on how the students do in certain classes. So maybe one teacher isn't actually going to teach the harder content. They're just going to give them easier grades on the test so that they get that A+ on the report card. But that doesn't help anybody. If they're not trying to help their superintendent keep the job and they're actually teaching the class so that all the students actually gain the knowledge they need to, that's way more beneficial. When you look at people raising babies, if they're raising them not so that if the parents in this case are racist, so the kid ends up being racist too. Instead, they're raising it so the kid ends up being compassionate, empathetic to everyone around them. That's better for society. Yeah. You don't need to help the person above you all the time. You need to help the person below you. That's just how it goes.
Right. I mean, I'm sit there with that. That's real. That's real. And I think it you know, I've been wrestling for 13 years, and never once in my life did my mom say, "Oh, Ray, you're not wrestling well today. I don't love you as much." Right? My mom felt the same way about me since I was born. Right? So like when we define ourselves on like everything we do, I think we limit who we are. You know, like we have so much limitless potential, all of us. We have so much power and limitless potential inside of us. And, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm still figuring things out. But I truly believe that, like, that there's so much more I'm going to learn, and there's so much more I'm going to do, and there's so much more I'm capable of besides wrestling, you know. And I just hope that one day I can make a similar impact, maybe not as much as a King, you know, or as, you know, a Mandela. Those are people that inspire me. People that, like, those that have that kind of character truly inspire me. And I think we really need to start looking at those people more, who they truly were. I feel like people nowadays, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to bash our society too much, because I don't just want to make it just about society. These are people just making decisions. That's all it is. So I get that people are making choices, and like I said, I make bad choices all the time. I do things wrong, and I'm definitely not perfect. But at least if I'm gonna look at somebody, and I'm gonna look at somebody who I should follow after, I should look at people that made me feel a certain type of way, or that really, really did something. Like that, it was so real and it was so impactful that we're still talking about them and we still believe in them. You know, we still trust what they did. And so that's why I bring those people up. That's why I bring, you know, somebody else who inspired me, like Obama, you know. And I bring those people up because You see how they lived. You see who they are. And they weren't perfect. None of them were perfect. But they did things and they tried to be. They tried, man. There's people out here who aren't trying. They go the complete opposite way. They like, I'm not gonna try at all because I don't need to try. Like, why do people deserve this from me? And I've been through that phase in my life where I'm like, I'm only gonna give people what they deserve. I'm only gonna give to people who deserve it, right? And it's like, sometimes, bro, give to people even if they don't. You don't know how that might change their life. You doing that might just change how they think about life. Yeah.
Yeah, no, my bad. I wasn't sure if you were continuing on there. I don't want to interrupt that because that was a great point to make. It doesn't matter if someone seems like they're not the best person. They might just be having an off day. They could be the greatest person. Something could have just happened. Could have been death in the family or something. Now they're feeling terrible for that day and they're negative to everybody. If you show them kindness in that moment of negativity, it could change their entire outlook for the rest of the week. They could say, why am I just stuck in a rut? Why don't I start being nicer to other people? I saw a quote a couple days ago where it was just basically saying, be the reason that people believe in kind hearts and pure souls. And it's something that you want. A lot of people don't believe that's a real thing anymore. Because when you look back at Martin Luther King, as we were talking about earlier, you don't remember how rich he was, how much money he made.
No, not at all.
No, you remember how many people he impacted. And that's such a more valuable thing for people to care about. Yeah. One of the richest men in history, Pompey. No one really talks about him ever. We only learn about him in like freshman history class in high school because of the first triumvirate. No one talks about his message to the world.
Right.
He's not someone people look up to. People look up to the greats, the people who sacrifice stuff for other people, not people who sacrificed other stuff from other people for them.
Yeah.
So that's how it should be, I personally think.
Yeah, like, if you think about even some of like the richest people, a lot of times they not remembered for like you said, how much money they have. You know, like somebody like Alexander the Great, like he was known for conquering like most of like maybe like I think most of Asia and like most of like half of like pretty much like I think like maybe like a large percent of Europe. I'm not going to say the percentage, but he conquered Asia, he conquered Egypt, Asia, he conquered he didn't conquer Rome. He conquered all of Greece and all of Asia. I know that for sure. He conquered a little bit India, but he didn't end up conquering. He ended up going back because his troops was like, nah, like we're not gonna keep doing this, bro. Like, take us home. But the reason why that was like so crazy is because he was so young. But one of the things that he's most remembered for is how he inspired people, like how he motivated people. Like, he had great strategy and he conquered these places, but he couldn't have done it without the soldiers. And how did he keep those soldiers motivated? Like, he always he was in the battles. Like, Alexander the Great would be fighting, like, in the battle. Like, he could have died from an arrow at any point. He could have been killed at any point. He would be in the fight. That was more inspiring than if he would have just been sitting back and like had the throne and been like, oh, look at how much money I got. I'm the king. Like, he was actually in the battle with the soldiers. And so I think that made a huge impact on his leadership. That probably was like, he didn't even probably have to say anything most of the time. He just would do and they would follow. And that's like, I think those are great leaders.
Yeah, well, he didn't put any separation between himself and the soldiers, as you said.
Right.
He was there in the midst of the battle. Could you imagine how few wars we would have if the person who orchestrated the war, like the leader of the country, the president, the prime minister, whatever it ended up being, had to fight in the war? Mm-hmm. There'd be maybe one every 100 years, at most. Because realistically, they're not walking into that fire. They're not seeing people that they're best friends with, have eaten lunch with every day.
Yeah.
Just die. That's just what happens in war. Mm-hmm. They're not experiencing that. If they had to, they would see the atrocities of war, and they wouldn't be putting other people through it. They would realize what it is like. But when you're sitting in just a room, you're assigning people like they're just chess pieces to go attack certain areas. They're just nameless bodies to you. It's a number in a statistic to you at that point. It's not a person with a family who's a father, who's a mother, who's a son, a daughter of somebody. It's just a nameless person who just adds the total of casualties. That's what it is to them at that point.
Yeah.
But then you can't be viewing people as that. If we viewed people as a statistic all the time, nothing would change in the world. There would not be a single thing that actually got positively influenced if we just viewed people as a number and not a person. The reason that people are so such beautiful creatures is that we can view people as what they are in the world. They're someone's father, they're someone's son, or someone's daughter, someone's wife. There's so many things that comes with being a person that people don't realize. We aren't just a number on a page that can't describe anything. If you make it to 20 years old, you're 20 years old, you're sitting in a class full of 20-year-olds, they've lived as much life as you have. It's not like they magically teleported to 20 years old. They lived 20 years of life just like you did. They've had all that life experience, and you have to view it that way. It changes everything when you do.
Yeah.
You realize somebody has an entire life behind them. They got to this point for a reason. They didn't just randomly wake up one day and go into this class because I needed a person to fill that seat. That's not how it is.
Nah. Yeah, people, I think everywhere, like every decision you made have kind of led up to where you are, you know. And along the way, you may have had things, setbacks, things you've had to overcome, but, you know, you fighting through, you being persistent led you to where you are, you know. So, yeah, all that is very true.
Yeah. Well, we got a little off topic for a bit there, Rayvon, but I think it was a great talk.
Great. I'm good with that.
No, I enjoyed that a bit, but real quick before we end up the interview and stuff, I want to ask you a little bit about one transition as we talk about that type of stuff. What was it like when you transitioned from the 125-pound weight class to 133? Because I wanted to ask about that. That was one of the things that most intrigued me when I was looking at it, because you were very successful in both divisions. It wasn't like one of them was more successful than the other. Both of them you showed that you were top tier in. So what was it like switching from 125 to 133?
I liked it better at 33 because I could eat more. No, seriously, like 25. The difference between 25 and 33 was, I think, in wrestling we call it hand fighting, where you're kind of like fighting for control to get position to set up your shots or set up your attacks. And in 25, I feel like there was a lot less hand fighting. I don't know if that was just because I had more mass or like I was bigger or whatever, but I just felt like in 33, I would hand fight a lot more, and there was just a lot more fight for control. And I think 33 too, for me at least, if you got scored on like at an early, or like if you were losing early, it was kind of a bigger deal, because I think at 25, everybody's moving so quick and people get tired way faster. So like I think maybe I had a little bit more success at 25 because I would always keep moving, and I never lost that trait, but it worked at 25 because you had to keep moving. If you stopped moving, it was so easy to kind of like take somebody down, or like it was easier for them to take you down or whatever if you just stopped moving. And I think it was a little bit different at 33 because people move a bit slower. They move a little bit slower.
Yeah, so just little things like that you would notice the difference, hand fighting, speed. One thing too, when you're moving that much at 133, you have 8 more pounds on you. I imagine it affects you a little bit differently. You get a little bit more tired. And one thing too, I know in the NBA, a lot of people won't even watch the first 3 quarters of the game because the fourth quarter is what matters. Would you kind of say that's how it was for 125, where you could come back in that final third bracket of time, or was it kind of more of like, I don't really know how to specifically put that. Would you say like if you had a 5-point lead going into the third, there was a much more likely chance that they came back in that third period for 125, or am I misinterpreting this a little bit?
And I think it's hard to say because I've never really thought about that deeply, because I feel like wrestling, it can happen at any point. A guy can make a comeback at any weight class, it seems. Maybe there's a more likelihood for 25. I haven't really thought about it. It seems like it would make sense because you, like I said, I mentioned before, you're moving at a way faster like pace. So if somebody like just started getting tired, you could just turn on the engine and just start moving really quick and just get into your attacks really fast and just finish it. Boom, let them up, finish, boom, blah, 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 like, and it just becomes like, you know, like a machine gun, or like you're just going, and then now you're up by like 10 points when you were down 10 points. Which that happens all the time. People may think that's crazy, but that happens all the time. I've seen it so many times, and it's insane. When a guy is down 8 points and he comes back and he's up. He's like up. The guy's up 8 points, and he comes back and the guy ends up winning 18-10, 18-8. That's crazy. And I've seen it. I'm like, wow, bro. Like I've had matches like that for me, like where I've been down like because of my style. Like I said, like I was always known for my pace. I've been down literally. I remember in high school specifically, this was when I was really small. This was 88 pounds. Yeah, 88 pounds. Like, so like imagine how small I am. Like, you see me now, I'm pretty small. But imagine when I was like in high school, 88 pounds, and I'm like skinny with a buzz cut.
Yeah, you're underselling yourself a little bit right now, Rayvon. You're pretty jacked. I've seen you on the mat, dude. Yeah, there's no way you can play that off. But 88 pounds is pretty crazy.
88 pounds. But anyway, like I said, I was wrestling this guy. He was a really good wrestler. His name is Brandon Keller. He's a really good wrestler. He All-American last year, I think, in college. I think he might have All-American this year. I don't know. But anyway, I was wrestling this guy. I think he was from Washington. It was national duels in high school. I was 88 pounds. And he, like in freestyle, if you score 10 pounds, that's a technical fall. So that means that the match automatically ends because of like technical superiority. Basically, they're saying this guy is too good for you. You can't wrestle no more. Stop wrestling. And so, you know, I was losing. This guy had 8 points. If he would have scored 2 more points, it would have been the technical fall. I came all the way back and I won 14-8.
Wow.
Like, it was crazy. And I think I scored most of my points in the third period. So, like, just imagine, like, he's winning. He's feeling confident. He's like, yeah. And then I think he was about to take me down, and I scored on him. And then I, like, let him back up, or I don't know. I think at freestyle they make you stand up. So I couldn't turn him in 10 seconds or something. And then and they were all takedowns. That, like, in freestyle, you can end a match, like most people like know, like in freestyle, they could say, oh yeah, like he just leg laced him, or he just hit him in a gut wrench, which is like a really fast turn. So like I just turned him and then I just got the points. That's not what happened. Like I think I maybe turned him maybe once, but most of them were takedowns. Like he got up and then I'll take him down again. He got up and take him down again. But I think in wrestling, it's more of a mental game than it is like just skill, or like you can have really good technique, you can have really good skill, and you can even be undefeated going up into that match. But when something happens where mentally you're out the game, you could just lose that match like that. That's how wrestling is. Yeah.
I guarantee the other wrestler has never forgotten the name Rayvon Foley after that match, or they just can have every point in that comeback ingrained too.
Yeah, he beat me later that tournament. It was later that year. You know, so he got his get back. But I mean, it was a really close match. But yeah, I mean, that's how it happens. I think also like, you know, it teaches you. You know.
Yeah, well, when you have such good competition like that, you said he came back and ended up beating you later in the year. You know that was a little bit personal for him. He was probably going on that match thinking of every single point that you had in that comeback last year, or last match that you had between the two of you. And I was thinking, I can't let that happen again. If this happens again, it's got to be a real problem. So you definitely inspired him a little bit to work a little bit harder on his game. Came back, obviously proved what ended up happening. But that is a great thing that happens. You see it. There's a really not the best comparison, was the first one that came to my mind. Seeing the Rocky movies like Apollo Creed and Rocky, that the journey spans across every single movie. Yeah.
Why are you like, have you been spying on me, bro? Because I literally just been watching like all the Rockies on Netflix. Dude, it's crazy. And I finished the latest Creed movie. That's crazy, literally.
Yeah, Rayvon, you really shouldn't have trusted that teddy bear I gave you last week. Yeah, there's a little camera stuck in there.
Right. I need to get rid of that.
But no, having competition like that where it keeps coming back and you see it in the future, it's really nice to have. One thing I want to ask you about too, Rayvon, while you've been going throughout this journey, you mentioned the mental stuff. You mentioned obviously coming back from injury, how you had to get through the mental stuff during that, how you had to learn to be humble through all the years that you've done this. What do you think the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your 13-year now journey of wrestling?
The biggest lesson
It's hard to boil down to one thing. I understand that. I apologize for that.
Nah, you're fine. The biggest one comes to me is like trust. The reason why I say that is because you have to be able to trust the process, trust the people around you, trust yourself, that you can do well, that you can actually, you have to be able to trust. And I think maybe I didn't always do that, and I didn't always get the results I wanted. So if somebody can learn how to do that all the time, I think you'll be really successful at wrestling. Like, I think you definitely probably do a lot better than me. That's probably the biggest thing. It's like you have to be able to trust. And it's not easy to trust because you got to find something to trust. But if you look in the right places, you find the right people, you can find something to trust. Trust me. You can. Trust me. From my experience, I believe you can find something to trust because I have.
Yeah, that's really a great message to spread. And Rayvon, I'm not letting you undersell yourself anymore. All-American high school state champion. You are a great wrestler, man. You're not going to make it seem like you're just one of the low-tier guys. You've done a lot for the sport. Before we wrap this up, as time starts to close, do you have any shout-outs that you want to give anyone in the audience who has supported you during your darkest days, during the come-up, anyone that you want to give a little shout-out
to? My teammate, Cam Caffey, all my coaches, who else? Like all my teammates, really all of them. Chase Lane, Malcheski, Chase Aldate. If you guys don't know, everybody probably should know him. Caleb Fish, the guys that like I feel like really pushed me or motivated me. I'm trying to think of those guys like in the room, and like it's no coincidence that we were all kind of like captains together. So we were all brothers and captains, and we kind of fought. My AIA group, Caleb Sleeman, Philly G, I'm trying to think of who else. Everybody in the AIA, you know, I love all of you guys. And so yeah, you guys know who you all are. Parker Jameson, he's a golfer. He's a real good man. I have so many people I can say, you know, AJ Kirkland, so many people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the struggle whenever you say, do you have any shouts that you want to give? Every name that you had before just goes out of your mind.
It's a million, bro. You guys know who you are. You guys know. But yeah, those people specifically.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say I really appreciate you coming on today, Rayvon. This is our third interview with the modern-day gladiator, a wrestler this time after the two boxers with the Brooks brothers last time. This was Rayvon Foley, a Michigan State University wrestler, a 6-year wrestler for this team, an All-American and a state champion. Rayvon, great having you on today. Would have rather had nobody else for episode 23. Hope you have a great day.
God, thank you, man. The greatest episode.